Hey, that is completely unacceptable.
I don't feel it.
Video!
That was a lawful order. Do you understand?
We need to know.
The afternoon sun hit the asphalt like fire, making every surface shimmer. A crowd gathered outside the courthouse steps. A minor traffic stop turned spectacle. Officer Mark Hollins stood rigid in his pressed uniform, hand already resting on his holster. Across from him stood Elijah Ward, cleancut.com, suit jacket folded neatly over one arm, badge wallet half visible from his pocket. Put your hands where I can see them. Hollins barked. Elijah blinked. Officer, the slap came before the sentence finished. The sound cracked through the air, a clean, brutal report that silenced the murmurs. Phones came up instantly. A woman gasped. Somewhere, a child started crying. Hollins stepped closer, his face twisted with a strange satisfaction. You people never learn respect. Elijah's jaw tightened, a pulse flickering near his temple. He didn't move, didn't speak, just looked at the officer, not with fear, but with calculation, the kind that made silence heavier than any shout. Someone whispered, "He didn't do anything." Another voice hissed back, "Don't get involved." Elijah slowly reached into his inner jacket pocket. Hollins' hand shot to his gun. The tension snapped the air like wire. When Elijah finally pulled out the small black wallet and flipped it open, the gold flashed under the afternoon sun. Crisp letters reading Federal Bureau of Investigation. A ripple of gasps. Hollins froze. His mouth opened, but no words came. Elijah's voice was soft, deliberate. "Now, officer, you want to try that again?" The crowd exhaled as if the world itself had paused a heartbeat before the storm. Camera flashes, sirens approaching. Someone yells his name, and Elijah, still standing tall, realized this was only the beginning. The courthouse square simmered under the noon heat, the kind that made tempers short and words sharper. Elijah Ward adjusted his tie as he crossed the steps, a slim folder in hand, closed case files, routine delivery, routine, until the flashing red and blue caught his eye. 2 patrol cars blocked the street, sirens spinning lazily. Officer Mark Hollins leaned against the hood, thick arms crossed, jaw working on gum like defiance itself. "Afternoon," Elijah said mildly, flashing his bureau ID. "Is there a problem, officer?" Hollins' eyes dragged across Elijah's suit, then his skin. "Problem? Not yet. Depends who you are. I'm here on federal business." Elijah kept his voice even calm. "You're obstructing a courthouse entrance. That's so." Hollins stepped forward. "Show me your license." Elijah blinked. "Excuse me," I said. "License." Hollins' tone dropped. "Or, are federal boys above the law now?" Murmurs rippled through the crowd forming around them. Elijah inhaled slowly, hands visible. He reached for his back pocket, deliberate, measured, but Hollins moved faster, shoving him hard against the patrol car. Gasps. A woman screamed. The thud echoed like judgment. "Stop resisting," Hollins barked. "I'm not." Elijah's words cut off as Hollins slapped him, open-handed, full force. The sound cracked like dry wood. Elijah's cheek burned. Cameras rose. Dozens of witnesses. No one moved. "Is this what respect looks like?" Hollins sneered. "You think that badge makes you untouchable?" Elijah said nothing. His jaw trembled, not from fear, from restraint. Every instinct screamed to fight back, but he'd seen too many men die proving they were right. The second officer, young and hesitant, hovered nearby. "Mark, maybe stay out of it," Hollins snapped. Elijah's fingers brushed his jacket, his badge wallet visible for a fraction of a second. Hollins saw it, paused, then yanked it free. "What's this? A prop?" He flipped it open. Silence fell. The letters shone gold. Federal Bureau of Investigation. Hollins froze, his breath hitched, pride collapsing into panic. "You assaulted a federal agent," Elijah said quietly. His tone carried no rage, only inevitability. "You might want to call your captain." The younger officer's radio buzzed. "Dispatch, we've got a situation at the courthouse." "No," Hollins barked, grabbing the mic. "It's under control." But it wasn't. Not anymore. Cameras were rolling, faces wide with outrage and disbelief. Elijah straightened his collar, blood rising under his cheek. "You just made the biggest mistake of your career." Hollins swallowed hard, sweat beating at his temple. "You people always play the victim." Elijah's stare cut through him, cold, surgical. "You people always mistake silence for weakness." Backup arrived. Sirens bled. Someone yelled, He's FBI. The crowd shifted, the tide turning. As officers surrounded them, Elijah didn't resist the handcuffs clicking shut. His voice was low but steady. I'm not resisting. I'm remembering. Flashbulbs went off. Reporters shouted questions. The world tilted. Through the blur of noise, Hollins leaned close, voice a rasp. You think that Bosch will save you? Not in this town. Elijah didn't answer. He just looked up, eyes catching the courthouse seal, justice for all, etched in stone above them. Bitter wind passed through the crowd as the camera lights blinked red. The screen of someone's phone recorded the final frame. A proud man, cuffed but unbroken, staring straight into the lens, and the beginning of something larger than both of them. The holding room was too bright, fluorescent light bleaching every surface into sameness. Elijah sat alone at the metal table, wrists free now but red from the cuffs. Across from him, a one-way mirror reflected a version of himself he didn't entirely recognize, calm on the outside, combustion underneath. The door opened. Captain Rhodes entered, mid-50s, uniform immaculate, voice like gravel polished with authority. Behind him trailed a note-taker and an officer holding a file. Agent Ward, Rhodes began with a slow exhale. Quite the scene you caused today. Elijah looked up, expression unreadable. Scene I caused? Your officer assaulted a federal agent on camera. Rhodes pulled out a chair and sat. You need to understand the optics here. Courthouse, crowd, everyone filming. People are emotional. I'm sure Officer Hollins overreacted. But overreacted? Elijah leaned forward. He slapped me in front of 24 witnesses, then cuffed me. But, Rhodes cut in, raising a hand, we have to consider full context before escalating things. You didn't identify yourself clearly. That could be construed as non-compliance. Elijah let the silence hang. The note-taker's pen scratched quietly across paper. I identified myself, Elijah said finally. He saw my badge. Rhodes' lips pressed into a patient smile, the kind that dismissed rather than soothed. Well, that'll be part of the investigation. Internal affairs will handle it. Best we keep this professional. Elijah studied him. Meaning, Rhodes said, lacing his fingers together. We don't want this going public before we have facts straight. I'm sure you understand. These days, perception spreads faster than truth. Elijah laughed, a single, humorless sound. You're not worried about perception. You're worried about accountability. Rhodes' eyes flicked toward the mirror. Agent Ward, this department has always respected the Bureau. But if you start throwing accusations around... I'm not throwing accusations, Elijah interrupted, tone cutting through the air. I'm describing what happened. Your officer struck me because I'm black, and because he thought he could. Rhodes' jaw flexed. That's a serious claim. It's a serious reality, Elijah said. A pause stretched between them. The room buzzed faintly with the hum of the overhead light. Rhodes finally sighed. All right, let's say, hypothetically, you're right. I still need you to sign. This acknowledgement form confirms your statement, confirms we processed you correctly, confirms we released you voluntarily. He slid the form across the table. The paper smelled faintly of ink and heat. Elijah didn't touch it. And if I don't, then this becomes a bigger problem. For everyone. Rhodes' tone softened, as if offering mercy. Look, you're an FBI agent. You know how bureaucracy works. Sometimes the best thing to do is step back. Let the system correct itself. Elijah's stare didn't waver. I am the system you're talking about, and I've seen what happens when people step back. Rhodes leaned in slightly, voice low. You really want to throw away your career over one officer's bad day? The question hung like smoke. Elijah stood, slow and deliberate. I want to throw light where people like you keep the blinds shut. Rhodes' expression darkened. That sounded like a threat. It's a promise of transparency, Elijah replied, pocketing his pen. And you'll see it coming. He turned toward the door. The guard moved to block him. Elijah stopped inches away, gaze steady. I'm leaving, he said evenly. If you want to arrest me, do it properly. Otherwise, get out of my way. The guard looked to Rhodes, uncertain. After a moment, Rhodes gave a curt nod, double quotes. Fine, you're free to go, Agent Ward, he said. But I'll expect cooperation when Internal Affairs contacts you. We'll handle our own. Elijah paused at the threshold. That's exactly what I'm afraid of. He walked out, each step deliberate, control masking the slow tremor in his hands. The hallway smelled of bleach and old sweat. An officer passed him, whispering under his breath, "That's the guy from the video." Outside, The sunlight hit him like a slap of its own, blinding, hot, too real. Reporters shouted questions across the barricade. Elijah said nothing, moving through them like through water. At his car, he stopped, resting both hands on the roof until his breath evened out. The world buzzed with noise, sirens, cameras, questions, but inside his head, everything was quiet, measured, strategic. He slid into the driver's seat, closed the door, and finally let the mask slip. His reflection stared back from the rearview mirror, a bruise forming under his eye, jaw tight, eyes colder than before. He picked up his phone and recorded a short voice memo. June 14th, 3:27 p.m. Assault by Officer Mark Hollins. Witness present. Video confirmed. Command interference. Captain Rhodes. Starting documentation. He stopped recording, saved the file, and whispered to himself. Paper shields burn faster than truth. Then he turned the key, engine roaring to life. Somewhere behind him, the courthouse crowd still swirled. Ahead, a darker system waited, polished, smiling, and ready to bury him. Elijah pressed the accelerator. The bureau would hear him soon enough. The elevator doors opened to the muted hum of the FBI field office. The atmosphere was sterile, gray walls, polished floors, every step echoing restraint. Elijah Ward moved down the corridor like a man stepping into court. Every sound sharper, every stare heavier. He paused outside the assistant director's office. The frosted glass read H. Whitaker, Deputy Director, Internal Affairs Liaison. He knocked once. Come in. Whitaker sat behind his desk, tie loosened just enough to signal controlled exhaustion. His face lit up with a professional smile that never touched his eyes. Elijah, I saw the footage. Then you know, Elijah replied. I know what social media thinks it knows, Whitaker said, gesturing for him to sit. The Bureau's name is all over this. That video's got over 3 million views already. Elijah stayed standing. I was assaulted by a police officer. On camera. You should be backing me. Whitaker sighed, rubbing his temples. You're not wrong, but you're not understanding the situation either. The Bureau doesn't engage in local police disputes. If we comment, it becomes a jurisdictional circus. Elijah's tone hardened. This isn't a dispute. It's misconduct, racism, abuse of authority. Whitaker leaned back, eyes narrowing. You're emotional, that's understandable, but we have to think institutionally. Optics, timing, departmental relationships. Optics, Elijah repeated, voice low. That's all anyone cares about. Optics, instead of accountability. Whitaker's patience thinned. Don't take that tone, Agent. You think you're the first black man in this bureau to face bias. We all play the same game. You keep your head down, you do your job, and the machine keeps moving. Elijah stepped closer. That's the problem. The machine shouldn't keep moving. Whitaker's gaze sharpened, his voice flattening. I'm telling you this because I respect you. Let it go. The Bureau will quietly liaise with the department. Hollins will get reassigned, maybe suspended. But if you make noise, if you start pointing fingers, you'll find yourself transferred, or worse. Elijah stared at him. So you're telling me to be complicit? I'm telling you to survive. The words landed like a slap harder than the one in the courtyard. Elijah's jaw clenched. You ever been humiliated in front of a crowd, sir? Had your skin determine how much pain you're allowed to show? Whitaker's silence was answer enough. Elijah nodded slowly. Didn't think so. He turned to leave. Whitaker's voice stopped him. You make this political, you'll lose everything. Badge, pension, reputation. Don't mistake principle for strategy. Elijah glanced over his shoulder. And don't mistake fear for wisdom. He walked out. The office buzzed quietly with low conversations. A few agents averted their eyes as he passed. Others gave him quick nods, sympathy wrapped in caution. In a place built on secrets, silence was the only currency that kept you employed. In the privacy of his cubicle, Elijah opened his encrypted files. He plugged in the backup drive, copied his phone memo, downloaded every video link before they vanished. Then he started typing. Notes, timestamps, summaries, officer badge numbers, witness accounts. He wrote like a man building a case for his own existence. The clock ticked toward dusk. The office emptied. Outside, the city lights bled through the blinds like quiet fire. His phone vibrated. A message from an unknown number. Saw what happened. You won't get justice and call me. Attached was a contact. Nina Alvarez, independent journalist. Elijah hesitated. Talking to press meant crossing a line he couldn't uncross, but the system had already drawn its own line and shoved him behind it. He typed back, Then he encrypted his notes and sent a copy to his personal server. His reflection stared back from the dark screen, tired, but sharper, focused, he whispered to himself. The words cold and certain, they protect each other. I'll protect the truth. When he left the building, the lobby guard didn't meet his eyes. The air outside carried rain. A storm building somewhere beyond the skyline. Elijah walked into it. No umbrella, no hesitation. Each drop felt like punctuation, a declaration of what was coming. Behind him, the bureau's windows glowed like blind eyes, watching nothing. Tomorrow, the silence would break. The morning light slanted through the cafe's glass windows, painting the tables in fractured gold. It smelled of espresso and ink, a place where words mattered more than noise. Elijah Ward sat near the corner, back to the wall, eyes scanning exits by instinct. His coffee had gone cold before Nina Alvarez walked in. She wasn't what he expected. No clipboard, no suit, just a leather jacket, notebook, and the kind of composure only people who've seen too much truth could carry. Elijah Ward, she said, sliding into the seat across from him. You've had quite a week. Depends who you ask, he replied. She opened her notebook. I don't ask, I verify. You wanted to talk. Elijah hesitated, then placed a small drive on the table. Footage backups, witness statements, every internal form filed since the incident. Half of it will disappear by next week. Nina raised an eyebrow. You're trusting a journalist with pure evidence. I'm trusting someone who doesn't work for them, Elijah said quietly. She studied him. You know what happens if I run this. They'll come for both of us. He leaned forward. They already have. Holland's captain told me to keep quiet. My superior told me to let the system handle it, but the system's built to hide its rot. Nina scribbled something, then looked up. You think this is about one racist cop? Elijah's expression hardened. It's about how many let him exist. She smiled faintly, not from amusement, but recognition. Good answer. They spoke for over an hour about the slap, the holding cell, the paperwork errors. Every detail layered the truth tighter, but it wasn't enough. She needed more. You mentioned Holland's record, Nina said finally. How deep does it go? Internal Affairs closed 3 complaints, 1 for excessive force, 1 for harassment, 1 for evidence tampering, all sealed. Nina frowned. Sealed how? Union protection clauses, Elijah said. He's got political cover. Someone high up's keeping his name clean. She leaned back. You can find it. Elijah hesitated. If I push my clearance limits, then push them, she said flatly. Because until someone like Holland's falls, this system doesn't change. The firmness in her voice reminded him of why he'd called her. She wasn't afraid of institutions. She hunted them. He nodded once. You'll have what you need by Friday. Nina closed her notebook. Then you'd better move fast. I've been doing this 15 years. When the machine feels threatened, it eats its own. By midnight, Elijah was deep inside bureau archives, the blue glow of the monitor reflecting off tired eyes. The files weren't supposed to be accessible from his clearance level, but he'd been an analyst before he'd been an agent, and ghosts in code remembered their creators. He navigated through encrypted audit trails, past redacted logs, until he found it. Officer Mark Holland's complaints summary confidential. He clicked. The file opened like a wound. 3 complaints, 5 witnesses, 2 settlements, 1 internal memo, signed by Captain Rhodes, authorizing the non-disciplinary resolution of an interpersonal misunderstanding involving use of force. The document included attached images, grainy photos of bruises on a young man's face, time-stamped 3 years ago. A note scribbled at the bottom, handled internally. Officer Holland's cooperative. Elijah exhaled slowly. Rhodes had buried it. He copied everything, encrypted the files, and sent them to Nina's secure inbox. A single line accompanied the transfer. He's done this before. I'm done letting it slide. Seconds later, a reply came back. Then it's time to make it public. 2 days later, they met again, this time in a car parked across from the precinct. Nina's laptop glowed between them, displaying stills from the leaked footage. His pattern's clear, Nina said. 3 victims, all black men, all cases dismissed. Your bureau never intervened. Elijah's silence spoke enough. She looked at him. We go live Sunday. You'll need to confirm sources anonymously. I'll confirm, Elijah said, but don't use my name. Already planned not to. Her phone buzzed, a tip from an insider. She scanned it, eyes narrowing. Holland's disciplinary files tied to city contracts. The mayor's re-election campaign took donations from the police union that defended him. Elijah looked out the window. the precinct glowing under streetlights. So this isn't just about one badge, it's about who keeps paying for it. Nina nodded. Exactly. You ready for this? He didn't answer immediately, his gaze fixed on the entrance where Holland's silhouette moved, laughing with two fellow officers. Elijah's reflection in the glass looked different now, not victim, not agent, something colder, sharper. I'm ready, he said finally. Let's start tearing down the lies. The laptop screen flickered as she uploaded the files to the publication server. A progress bar crept forward to 12%, 37%, 64%. Outside, thunder rolled. When it hit 100%, Nina closed the lid. It's done. Once this runs, there's no undoing it. Elijah nodded once. Good. The first drops of rain tapped against the windshield. Quiet, rhythmic, inevitable. Inside the car, silence sat between them like a pact. Neither spoke as lightning cracked across the skyline, the flash reflecting in their eyes. Marking the moment truth began its slow, unstoppable burn. The video hit the internet like a detonation. By dawn, it was everywhere. Twitter feeds, cable news, even breakfast shows pretending at neutrality. Racist officer slaps black man in front of crowd. Clicks poured in by the millions. Each replay was a wound reopening. Elijah Ward watched from his kitchen counter. Phone buzzing non-stop with messages he didn't answer. The footage played again. Holland's hand, the crowd's gasp, his own stillness, a stranger's commentary overlaid. You can see the agent tries to stay calm. Look at the control, the dignity, but it didn't feel dignified. It felt raw, invaded. His humiliation, now public property. On the TV, a panel of pundits argued. Context matters, one said. Maybe the officer didn't know he was FBI, another offered. Then the anchor turned to a grinning retired chief who said, "These videos don't tell the whole story." Elijah turned off the sound. The silence pressed harder than noise. A knock at the door. He opened it to find his mother, Evelyn Ward, early 60s, eyes sharp as ever. She didn't wait for an invitation, just walked in and placed a bag on the counter. "Cooked you something. You look thinner." He half smiled. "You saw it. Everyone saw it." She looked at him steadily. "And you still look like the boy who held his breath when they pulled you over at 16. Elijah leaned against the counter. "Feels like nothing's changed." She opened the bag, taking out containers of food with the precision of habit. "You changed. You went inside their walls. That was supposed to make you safe." He laughed softly, bitterly. "Safe doesn't exist for people like me. It just gets redefined." She stopped what she was doing and looked at him. "You're going to fight this, aren't you?" "I already started." "You'll lose friends." "I already have." Evelyn sighed. "Then do it right. Not loud, not reckless. Make it count." Her voice steadied him more than anything. For the first time in days, he felt something like grounding. His phone buzzed again. A text from Nina. City press conference at noon. Holland's placed on administrative leave. Statement expected. He looked up at his mother. "They're scrambling." "Good," she said. "Let them sweat." At noon, reporters flooded the precinct steps. Flashbulbs burst like lightning. Captain Rhodes stood at the podium, reading from a prepared sheet. "Officer Hollins has been placed on administrative leave pending investigation. The department remains committed to transparency and fairness." From the crowd, someone shouted, "Transparency. You covered for him before." Rhodes ignored it. "We urge the public to remain calm and let due process." The shouting grew louder. Protesters had arrived. Signs reading "Noted badge above law. Justice for Elijah Ward. Reform now." Nina stood among them, phone raised, streaming live. She caught every flicker of Rhodes' discomfort. Across town, Elijah watched from his car, engine idling. He didn't need to be there physically. His name was already there, printed, chanted, dissected. The phone rang. Unknown number. He answered, a man's voice, low and venomous. "You think you're some kind of hero? You embarrassed this department. You embarrassed law enforcement. People like you make it harder for everyone." Elijah didn't respond. The caller laughed softly. "Enjoy your fame while it lasts, agent. It won't protect you." Click. The line went dead. He stared out the windshield. The reflection of his own eyes met his calm, unflinching. That night, the city's skyline shimmered with unrest. Chants echoed from the courthouse lawn where the slap had happened. The same space, now reclaimed by voices refusing silence. Elijah walked among them, unnoticed, hood drawn low. He didn't speak, just listened. Say his name. Elijah Ward. Justice for all. Every shout struck a nerve. This wasn't victory. It was exposure. A crack in the wall. not the fall of it. Beside him, a young protester turned, recognizing him. "It's you, isn't it?" Elijah hesitated. "Yeah." The young man's eyes burned with respect and anger. "You made them see." "No," Elijah said quietly. "They just finally decided to look." He left before the cameras found him. Home. He sat in the dark, scrolling headlines. Officer Hollins suspended. FBI agent assaulted by local cop. Public demands accountability. But below every article, the comments twisted reality, people defending Hollins, calling the footage fake, demanding Elijah's firing. He closed the laptop. His mother's words echoed. "Make it count," he whispered into the stillness. "I'm not done yet." Outside, sirens wailed. Not warning, but rhythm, the sound of a city waking up to its own sickness. Elijah stared through the window, jaw set, the light of 1,000 screens reflecting off the glass. All watching, none yet understanding. The truth was out, but war was only beginning. By the next morning, the headlines had shifted tone. What had been outrage now turned into skepticism. Cable anchors said phrases like alleged slap and apparent altercation. Anonymous sources began leaking claims. Agent Ward provoked the officer. Body cam footage, missing context. The system had begun its oldest ritual, rewriting truth into confusion. Elijah sat in a conference room at FBI headquarters, the walls glass, the silence clinical. Across from him sat Assistant Director Graham, a man with the patience of stone and the warmth of marble. "Agent Ward," Graham said, "this situation has become ... complicated." Elijah didn't answer. "The Bureau supports all our agents, but you understand, we have to manage perception. The press is framing this as racial rather than procedural." "It was racial," Elijah said flatly. Graham exhaled through his nose, as if the word itself were profanity. "Your opinion is noted, but we can't take sides publicly. You're being placed on temporary administrative reassignment until the matter is resolved." Elijah's stare didn't waver. "You're benching me to protect them." "Protecting the Bureau," Graham corrected. "You're a symbol now, and symbols attract chaos." Elijah stood. "I didn't sign up to be your shield." "Sit down, Agent." He didn't. He walked out without a word. Outside, the city air hit sharp and cold. He moved through it like a man shedding illusions. The FBI badge in his pocket suddenly felt like a relic, something forged for a belief that never existed. Nina caught up with him 2 blocks later, breathless, phone in hand. "They're turning it," she said. "They're trying to bury it under investigative procedure. They're saying you escalated. I expected that. They're releasing edited footage at noon. You should get ahead of it. Go live, tell your side." Elijah stopped walking. "No, let them lie first, then we'll burn the lie." Nina frowned. "You're playing a long game, aren't you?" "I'm done playing their game. I'm building one they can't rig." At noon, the police department released the footage. 3 minutes cut from 20. It began mid-argument, skipping the insults, skipping the slap, framing Elijah as agitated. Within hours, social media split in two, those who saw through it, and those who didn't want to. The mayor gave a statement, calling for unity. The governor called for order, and the police union called for Elijah's termination. But then came a leak. An anonymous file upload full, unedited body cam footage, Holland's voice clear. "Don't care who you are, you people always think the rules don't apply." Then, the slap. Then Elijah's restraint. Then the crowd shouting, "He's FBI." The clip spread faster than the doctored one. Within an hour, the narrative flipped again. Hashtag unedited truth trended across every platform. The union's statement disappeared. The department issued an internal review notice. And Elijah's phone exploded with calls. He ignored them all, except one. The number was restricted. The voice was cold. "Agent Ward, you think leaking classified material makes you a hero. You've made powerful enemies." Elijah leaned back in his chair. "If truth is classified, you've already lost." The caller paused, then said softly, "Careful, Agent, accidents happen." Click. He sat in the quiet after, not afraid, but sharpened. Threats were confirmation he'd hit the right nerve. That night, Nina arrived, unannounced. She placed a folder on his table. "What's this?" "Internal communications. Someone inside the precinct leaked it. Proves Holland's record. 5 prior complaints for excessive force. All buried." Elijah flipped through the pages, the signatures, the dates, the falsified reports, a map of corruption pretending it order. "This," he said, "is enough to break them." Nina nodded. "You'll need to go public. On record, I will, but not for revenge." For record correction. Same thing these days, she said, smiling. Elijah closed the folder, then let it begin. By morning, he was everywhere again, but this time, on his terms. His full statement played on national broadcasts. An officer didn't just slap me, a system did, and that system thought my silence was obedience. It was a mistake. The footage played beside him, the full version, with every omission exposed. The country watched, some outraged, some defensive, all unsettled. In precincts, officers turned off their screens. In homes, people whispered. In boardrooms, phones rang with damage control. In the bureau, Assistant Director Graham stared at the TV, realizing too late that silence had failed. Outside, protesters gathered again, not just for Elijah, but for every name erased before his chants rolled through the streets, not as chaos but clarity. And in that moment, Elijah understood something brutal and clean. Truth doesn't need permission to exist, it only needs to survive long enough to be seen. He walked into the crowd, no podium, no escort, no badge visible. Someone shouted his name. He didn't turn, he was just one of them now. The system had struck back, but it had missed the target. Rain fell hard the next morning, gray, relentless, drumming against the city like a slow heartbeat. Elijah drove in silence, windshield wipers keeping time with thoughts too heavy for speech. On every radio station, his voice played excerpts from his press statement, parsed, debated, dissected. Some called him a whistleblower, others called him reckless, a few called him a traitor. He turned the volume down and parked outside Nina's apartment. She was waiting by the window, face pale but resolute. "They're escalating," she said as soon as he stepped inside. "Anonymous threats, police cars outside my building. Someone tried to access my press credentials last night." Elijah's jaw tightened. "That's coordinated. They're not even hiding it now," Nina said. "This morning, Hollins filed a defamation suit, claims you assaulted him." Elijah stared at her. "He hit me on camera. Doesn't matter. The union's backing him. They want to make you an example. Show what happens to anyone who breaks the code." 2 days later, Elijah received an official notice. Internal review hearing subject, Agent Elijah Ward. Conduct unbecoming. A hearing, not for the officer. For him. He showed the letter to Nina. She read it twice, expression unreadable. "They're trying to bury the story under procedure. If you testify, they'll twist your words. If you refuse, they'll call you guilty." "Then we change the audience," Elijah said quietly. She frowned, meaning, "We bring the hearing to the people." The next week, the hearing convened inside a sterile federal building, walls, beige, air stale. Journalists weren't allowed, but someone had leaked the meeting link. By the time it began, over 500,000 people were watching online. The chairperson, a woman in her 60s, with an expression like cold iron, began, "Agent Ward, you are under review for conduct unbecoming, insubordination, and disclosure of internal matters. How do you plead?" Elijah's voice was calm. "I didn't leak. I revealed." "Revealed what, exactly?" "The truth you tried to bury." A murmur rippled through the panel. Another official leaned forward. "You're out of line, Agent. This is not a courtroom." "No," Elijah said, "but it should have been." He stood, ignoring protocol. "You brought me here to perform guilt, to make the public think I crossed a line. But I didn't cross it. I exposed it. You built it." The chairwoman banged her gavel. "Sit down, Agent." He didn't. "You want order, then start with justice. You want discipline, start with honesty. Because, if truth is a violation of conduct, then this bureau has already failed." The live feed exploded, comments poured in, hashtags reignited. The chairwoman ordered the stream terminated, but by then, millions had seen it. Outside the building, protesters had gathered again, umbrellas like shields, chants rising through the rain. Elijah walked out to them, the crowd parting, as if recognizing something final. Nina was there too, soaked through but smiling faintly. "They can't stop this anymore," she said. "They'll still try." "Then let them. You already changed the story." He looked out across the sea of faces, different races, ages, uniforms, people who had never met but carried the same wound. "They'll call it chaos," he said. "Then chaos is truth," Nina replied. By evening, the bureau suspended him indefinitely, officially, for breach of confidentiality, unofficially, for refusing silence. But the story wouldn't die. Every major outlet aired the hearing footage. Every talk show dissected the slap, the lies, the cover-up. Public pressure forced the police department to reopen the case. Hollins was placed on administrative leave. Internal Affairs confirmed the leaked documents, multiple prior complaints, all dismissed. The city trembled under the weight of exposure. One night, Elijah received a text, unknown number, meet me, parking garage, level 3. He went alone. The air was heavy with the hum of fluorescent lights. Shadows moved between concrete pillars. Then Hollins stepped out. Plain clothes, eyes red from sleepless rage. This what you wanted? Hollins spat. You ruined my life. Elijah didn't flinch. You did that the moment you hit me. I lost everything because of you. You lost it because you thought power made you untouchable. Hollins stepped closer. You think you're a hero? No, just the proof you can't erase. For a long second, the two men stared at each other, not equals, but mirrors of a broken system. Hollins finally looked away. You'll regret this. Elijah's voice was quiet, steady. Not as much as you will. Hollins left without another word. Elijah stood there in the silence after rain echoing through the open structure. The city breathing below. For the first time, he felt something close to peace. Not victory, just truth uncovered, raw and unfinished. That night, Nina called him. They're indicting him, she said. Officially, civil rights violation, assault, falsified report, federal charges. Elijah closed his eyes. And the Bureau, they'll distance themselves. But you forced their hand. You changed the conversation. He said nothing for a moment. Then, truth costs more than I expected. It always does, she said softly. But it's the only thing that lasts. In his apartment, he placed his badge on the table. It caught the dim light like a coin from another life. He didn't pick it up. He didn't need to. Outside. Sirens wailed. Not for him. Not this time. And somewhere in the distance, the rain stopped. The courtroom was silent except for the sound of rain tapping against the tall windows. Officer Hollins sat at the defense table, jaw set, uniform traded for a gray suit that didn't quite fit. His lawyer whispered to him, but his eyes never left Elijah across the room. Elijah sat behind the prosecution table, not as a witness yet, not as an agent anymore, just as a man. The badge was gone, but what replaced it was heavier. The responsibility of truth. Reporters filled the back rows. The world was watching. The judge entered, a black woman in her 50s, her robe moving like authority itself. Court is now in session. State versus Hollins. The charge, civil rights violation under color of law, assault with intent to harm. Hollins' attorney rose first, voice smooth. Your Honor, my client admits to a physical incident but denies any racial motivation. The altercation escalated due to the defendant's victims, the judge corrected. The lawyer paused, due to the victim's uncooperative behavior. The room shifted, the same language Elijah had heard all his life, weaponized neutrality, when it was his turn to testify. Elijah walked to the stand, unflinching. The prosecutor asked, Agent Ward, or rather, Mr. Ward, can you describe what happened that day? Elijah looked at Hollins, then at the jury. He stopped me because I didn't fit his idea of belonging. He struck me because I didn't fit his idea of obedience. The prosecutor nodded. Did you retaliate? No. Why not? Because I wanted him to see what restraint looks like. A low murmur rippled through the gallery. Hollins' attorney stood, smirking. Mr. Ward, isn't it true that you approached my client aggressively, that you raised your voice? I spoke. He reacted to my skin, not my tone. Objection. Speculative. Sustained. The judge said, though her gaze lingered a beat longer than protocol required. The lawyer pressed on. You're a trained federal agent. Why didn't you de-escalate? Elijah leaned forward. Because my existence shouldn't need de-escalation. The silence that followed was absolute. Even the rain seemed to pause. By the time court adjourned for the day, the internet had already seized on the quote, #existence Holden and done trended. Across the world, the case became more than a trial. It was a referendum on accountability. But for Elijah, it wasn't fame, it was exhaustion. Every night he returned to his apartment, sat in the dark, and listened to the city hum. Every victory carried the echo of every man who hadn't survived long enough to testify. 2 weeks later, the verdict came. The judge read slowly, each word heavy as iron. On count 1, guilty. On count 2, guilty. The gallery erupted, some cheering, some weeping. Cameras flashed like lightning. Hollins didn't move, his jaw clenched, his eyes burned with something between rage and disbelief. Elijah didn't celebrate. He only breathed deeply. For the first time in months. Justice, yes, but not healing. Outside the courthouse, microphones waited. A reporter called out, "Mr. Ward, what do you say to those who think this verdict divides the country?" Elijah looked at her, voice steady. "It doesn't divide the country. It reveals it." He turned and walked away, leaving the cameras to scramble for sound bites that couldn't hold what he'd just said. That night, Nina joined him on the roof of his building. The city stretched beneath them, tired, alive, unresolved. "You did it," she said quietly. "No," he said. "We forced the mirror to stay up. The reflection did the rest." She nodded, eyes glistening. "People are still afraid. They see what happened to you and think, if even an FBI agent isn't safe, they're right," he said. "But fear can't be permanent. Truth doesn't ask for comfort. It demands recognition." They stood in silence for a long time. Below, protesters still marched, even after the verdict. Their signs glowed in the streetlights. Justice didn't stop the movement. It started it. Weeks passed. Holland's sentence was handed down. 7 years. He appealed. He lost. The department issued a review of policies. The Bureau quietly reinstated Elijah's credentials, though he never returned. Instead, he founded a small nonprofit, The Unseen File, dedicated to exposing civil misconduct buried under bureaucracy. He worked without titles, without the need for validation. Each story published was another crack in the old foundation. One afternoon, Nina visited his new office, a small brick space downtown. "You look tired," she said, dropping off fresh coffee. "I look free," he corrected. She smiled. "You've changed, Elijah." He nodded. "No, I just stopped apologizing for being visible." Later that evening, as dusk painted the city gold, Elijah stood by the window watching a patrol car pass. For a second, its lights flared red and blue against the glass, symbols of power, still imperfect, still necessary. He didn't look away. There would be more stories, more battles, more reckonings. But for now, the truth had survived the storm, and that was enough. The world doesn't change because one man speaks. It changes because silence finally stops protecting the wrong people. Elijah closed his laptop, turned off the light, and walked out into a night that no longer belonged to fear.